Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Game Vault podcast stream. I'm your host, Mark, and it's time for the news hour. For those of you watching live, I have streamed an awful lot today. I think it's 6 hours, maybe 5.5, of Expedition 33. Essentially, I'm just trying to keep up with the min-max deepest dive, and that is going to be shown tomorrow, so I needed to get to the spot in the game. I was almost worried that we'd have a stream after this, but that is not too much of a worry. I'm going to, for those watching the video, I'm going to sort of fuck with the, there we go. That might be a little noisy, but it's a lot better than it was. Yeah, so we're playing that a lot. I haven't had much time for anything else, so that'll be mostly what I've been playing here. So yeah, these ones. There's 2 more weeks of this. Episode 6 and 7 of Last of Us is coming, and as usual, when I start talking spoilers for The Last of Us, I will put up my 2 hands to signify that has started, and then they will go up again when I'm done. I am keeping my hands below my desk because I like to talk with my hands. And I don't want to have people that just mute it and, are just watching for the visual cue. I don't know who's watching for the visual cue, but I want to give a visual cue so that people maybe scrubbing through the video will see the cue. And I keep it hands up long enough that it pops up on the scrub. As Metal Militia Night Duck said in the chat, it is pretty late. So I try to keep these to 30 to 45 minutes. But it just depends on how much I want to talk about Last of Us and how much I want to talk about Expedition 33. I'm trying to be as vague as possible on Clair Obscur, just because I know Night Duck is playing it, and I don't think it's fair for the news audience that is not here for the game to hear my spoiler discussions. There will be a spoiler cast from me. Basically probably going to be a YouTube exclusive, talking about it. I haven't decided yet. If it's just me and Goat, there's really no reason to have a chat there. So, yeah, we'll figure that out. I want to get it out as quickly as possible, so I don't want to wait around for, yeah. So if you can get it done by June, we'll say after Summer Games Fest, I can record then. With you. Yeah, because that was my plan, to do it after Summer Games Fest. So, yeah, so I think that's it. It's going to be Last of Us and Expedition 33 to start. How is everybody doing? Happy Mother's Day for those of you watching live. It is Mother's Day here in the United States. I had to run up my mother's, and I do it every week anyway, but, a little bit longer this time, which is why I kind of had such a condensed schedule for streaming today. Yeah, we'll play it by ear. We'll see where you're at by Summer Games Fest, and then we'll see. I should be done with it by the end of May, just because I'm trying to keep up with min-max, and that's when their thing is going to be done. And it also gives me a month, to get ready for Death Stranding 2, to do other things and maybe recharge my streaming batteries. So I basically streamed, ate dinner, streamed, watched Last of Us, streamed, basically since 2 o'clock, 2:30 maybe 2:30 this afternoon. I don't know if it's 2:30. It was sometime middle of the afternoon, and then I've just been basically in front of this computer for most of the time since then. So, yeah, let's get into it. I'm going to give the signal for the video audience. It's going to go silent for you audio listeners, because I do not edit out the silence, just because it would make it very weird syncing it up with the video and things like that. So, yeah, I'll put my hands up here. We'll go silent for a little bit, and that also for you listening audio listeners, that'll give you the chance to get out of here until you've watched the show. So here we go. All right, so episode 5 of The Last of Us. Just got done watching. And bye, Night Duck. Probably talk to you tomorrow. Yeah, so for the most part, it was really good. I was really, 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 really happy with it. There are a couple things that are a little strange with it, just because of the way they're telling the story this time. Because they're trying to do everything. They're essentially trying to have their cake and eat it too, as the saying says. They made a lot of good changes, fun changes, but they're still trying to keep a lot of the fundamental things from the game in there. So this one opens with the introduction of spores into the TV show. They haven't had them in there, but mainly the explanation from Craig Mazin, and I think Neil Druckmann a little bit on the official pod, was that the idea of spores in a video game work because you put a gas mask on, and that's good. For a video game, you don't want that, or for a TV show, you don't want characters in gas masks for 10 minutes where you can't see their face or really understand what they're saying without subtitles. So they basically didn't have spores, but had to introduce it very much so for a moment in this episode and for a moment in season 3 that'll come up. So they introduced spores. That's how the cold open is the former head of the Wolves before Isaac, or she's his right hand person or something like that. I forget the notes. It's been a while since I played the actual game. So there's some little details here and there that I am not, sure about. But for the most part, I think it's relatively stayed the same, except for this is their introduction to spores, not just a spores moment in the game. So we find out that they're trying to clear out the basement of the hospital, which has a whole nother implication for those of us who played the game. And they find out that there's a big overgrowth in the basement and that the virus or the fungal infection is in the air. So they seal off the basements under the command of the person leading the clearing expedition down there. And we find out that is the son of the person that is explaining this to the woman that's seemingly in charge of the wolves at this point. I believe this is in the game as well, in notes and stuff like that. But a little more emotional here, and especially because she seals off and basically kills her son, which, again, is just showing the contrast between some people and Joel when he makes the same decisions in terms of he chooses Ellie over society, and this woman chose society over her son. Theoretically, her son was already dead, for all intents and purposes. So the scene here doesn't have as much of a tie-in, but they try so hard in the making of to let you know that. But Cold Open was great. It sort of introduces this thing, and then it kicks right into showing Dina doing the triangulation, sort of trying to figure out where the wolves' patrols are and where they are in sections and things like that. They didn't go into the details to where she figured out the patrol zones on the map, but she sort of figured out, that they have these two areas they are patrolling, but then they leave this open gap with a building in it. So they don't know what's in the building, but they assume that it's probably infected, or else they would be patrolling that building as well. So they make off to go do that. On the way, they have the conversation where in the game, as you know, we talk about game and show spoilers, but only game spoilers up to this point. At this point, Dina stays back and basically becomes Oracle for Batman purposes, sort of gathering the information and letting Ellie know what's going on when she gets back and all that stuff, sort of helping from afar. So, in this case, Dina comes with her. And they have the whole conversation where, I'll stay back if you want me to stay back, but I'll go if you don't want to go. When she explains in more detail the first time she killed someone, when they were basically killing her sister and mother. So Ellie says, nope, we're going to keep going. And so they go, they get to the building, and once they get inside, sort of back and forth dynamic shifts between, Ellie and Dina in terms of who's leading who. They get into this big open area, and you find out that it's full of stalkers, which essentially there are 11 or so of them, maybe a dozen, and that's just death, unless you're in a video game, and have like unlimited ammo, resources, and stuff. But in this world, it is death. So they do what they can, and just when it seems like, the person's getting to Dina and Ellie's about to get bit, or maybe she was bit, all of a sudden someone shows up with a high-powered gun and kills all the stalkers before they have a chance to react. At first, in her dreamlike state, Ellie sort of thinks it's Joel, but as those of us who played the game and all know that at some point Jesse was going to show up, and it is Jesse here. He comes out much earlier than he does in the game, but at this point, I think they're taking away a lot of the areas where they would have met previously and sort of just truncating, essentially, the days, because I believe day 3 is going to be the last episode. So they needed to get Jesse here, and he shows up, and we find out that he came with Tommy, which is the opposite of what happens in the game. Basically, in the game, since, like I said, we're spoiling game moments up until the point they are in the show. So in the game, Tommy leaves first. Maria lets Dina and Ellie go with the thing that once they find Tommy, they come back. So that's not what Ellie is going to do, but that's how she gets Maria to let her go. So they go, and this whole time you're hearing, about things Tommy's doing, and they're following Tommy. And then when you get trapped out in the middle of a suburbia sort of area, you find out that Jesse has also shown up. And Jesse comes because he was worried about them, Dina and Ellie, but also because he wanted to bring Tommy home. He needed to find Tommy. So that's how you meet here. But in this time, they're doing, Jesse and Tommy are working together, which makes kind of more sense when you're sort of shortening things. So he rescues them. They run into a park where in the original game, Ellie just runs into the park on her own. And this is where you first encounter Seraphites. And in the game, Ellie gets shot in the shoulder, and it teaches you the mechanic where if you don't pull the arrow out of your shoulder, you will bleed, and the game will be over. So in this one, shoots, and Dina gets shot in the leg, and that's how you get Jesse and Dina back to the theater, and Ellie can go on her own, because it is very, very, very important that Ellie is at the hospital alone. And it is also very, very important that they introduce spores before Ellie gets to that hospital alone. So they run off. Ellie hides. The Seraphites stop looking for her. And then she notices when she pops out of hiding that she's really close to the hospital where Nora is. So instead of running back to check on Dina and Jesse, she goes, nope, I'm going to the hospital, and I am going to find Nora. So they go to she goes to the hospital, sneaks in, the dogs notice her, but she sneaks in through a very small hole, so they just think it's a critter, the dumb wolves. So they just back off. She gets in the hospital, then we find Nora doing her doctor thing, and then Ellie sneaks up on her. Kind of similar situation as in the game, except we don't follow Nora until she gets met. Ellie just walks into the room where they find her. That's obviously the difference between a TV show and a game. You can follow multiple perspectives. So They have the same conversation here, and very well done. It was a perfect one-to-one from the game in terms of the dialogue. Almost perfect. Probably not word for word. I shouldn't say that, but it got the point across. And then they do the chase, which the chase is the best part. The only thing that they didn't have that I would love to have seen, but maybe Bella's a little shorter than Ellie in the game, or maybe it would have looked weird. But in the game, while you're chasing her, there's like beds in the way, and Ellie like sort of athletic hops over the beds as she's chasing Nora. So they chase through, they're getting shot at and all that. And in this case, I think in the game they fall through. Oops, sorry, I can't have my hand up. They fall through like a hole in the floor or something. And then I don't know if it's an elevator shaft. Maybe it's an elevator shaft. It's an elevator shaft in the game. They fall down and then they get to B1 or whatever, and then you have a fight with the wolves before continuing on to Nora. Nora unknowingly runs into a spore area and gets trapped. So you follow her in the game and she gets trapped. In this case, you know, they go through an elevator shaft, fall into B2. You know, Nora kind of was hoping maybe there was some way out, but obviously there is not. So we get the thing where Ellie's walking through, and this is the first time she's seen anything like this. So it's, you know, the set was beautiful. Lots of fungal growth on the wall, people trapped in the walls that have been there for a long time, and all they do is they breathe in and then they breathe out spores and spread more, mushroom tendrils and all around here. I'm going to assume what they might end up doing with spores is making it. That's because there's that tendril network that they've introduced that set off hordes. I think they might tie spores to that. Like the spores underground is what creates the tendrils, and the tendrils, do the send the hordes. So we'll see where it goes from there. But it was important because what happens here is Ellie walks in. They got the red lighting, which is great from the game. Ellie walks in and starts and confronts Nora. And they have basically almost the same dialogue as in the game, which is one of the more chilling dialogues, where, like, in the game it's the first time you learn this as well, so I'm glad they held it off to here. So she walks in and she's not coughing. So at this point, Nora realizes you are that mythical girl from the hospital that was immune. And that's who Joel saved. That you're her. And it says basically, do you know what he did? And then Ellie very coldly says, I know. And then basically from there, she just beats the shit out of Nora. I know what happens next. Obviously played the game. You don't know because it goes to the black screen just like in the game while she's beating her with a pipe. But in the show, they show Ellie in her bed back in Joel's house. And then we're going to start the flashbacks. Which I think episode 6 is going to be all flashbacks. You're going to go through, and this is in the trailer, so I'm not going to spoil anything that's not in the trailer. So essentially, what I think is going to happen, they obviously show the space stuff. They show them out in some area, and then they just show a bunch of Joel and Ellie walking around. So it's going to be obviously, that situation. So I think we're going to get all the flashbacks. I think we're going to get all of them in a row in chronological order and sort of learn how Ellie, from the time they got into Jackson to the time when you meet them right before a couple weeks before the New Year's party or a year or whatever it is before the party. That whole time period. I think they're going to do a whole episode on it. So be ready for that. Um, Now, I don't know if there's going to be some flashback Abby 2 in here um, at any point. I don't think so. But it is weird that they had Caitlin Deaver listed as in 5 episodes, and she's only been in 2? Yeah, she wasn't in... 3 was the funeral episode. She was not in that. 4 was Seattle Day 1. She's not in that. I guess she was shown in, like, flashbacks. Maybe that's how it counts. But yeah, I don't know if she'll be in this episode. She's definitely in 7. She's definitely in the final episode. Because final episode is going to be Seattle Day 3. And all that goes on with that. I was counting through my hands. I gotta see if they have just mixed Manny and that other guy together. Because there was... Basically, at where Joel dies, there is Manny, Owen, Nora, Mel, Abby, and I forget what the other guy's name is. Joshua, Jonathan, something like that. That's the guy that gets like the cut on his face. I don't know if they just mixed Manny and that guy together to have one less person to worry about, because they completely cut out the scene that involves that guy getting killed by Ellie and Dina. So maybe they just... I got to go back and see the Joel killings, see how many people are there. Because they have shown Manny a couple times. But yeah, so that's all coming up. It's starting to get to a head. Next week's going to be emotional wreck of an episode. And then the action-packed finale is going to be very, very, very fun. Yeah. I don't know where they're going to end it. Like, are they going to end it like the game? And just have the black screen cut off end of season? Or are they going to tease where you start next season? I don't know what they're going to do with that. So, very, very good episode tonight. I'm just... the whole Tommy Jesse getting there... that whole thing is confusing. They're just sort of trying to hand-wave it. Because they did things differently. But they absolutely need both of them in Seattle. So, this is an easy way to get them there. The one thing I'm most concerned about, and you guys can let me know in the comments or on social media, over on Blue Sky or anything. Did they just leave Shimmer at the record store? I think they just left Shimmer at the record store. Because since they're probably not going to do it, in the game, you run across a thing and then you run into an ambush. And a bomb goes off, you get thrown off the horse, wolves come up, they shoot Shimmer, and then they take you custody, and that's the end of Shimmer. The last time we've seen Shimmer in this game is when they bring her into the record store, and she's eating the grass at the record store. From what I can tell, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, that is the last time we see Shimmer. I guess the horse can survive 2 days? Because I'm assuming they'll go collect Shimmer if they leave? I mean, the horse survived would be like a 40-day journey anyway, which would be impossible for horses, but Shimmer's a super horse, apparently. So maybe it's fine, but, you got infected and things like that. I don't know if they sealed her in a room. There's so many questions that it's just going to be suspension of disbelief. That just me knowing how Shimmer... what happens to Shimmer in the game, I'm concerned. So anyway, great episode of television. Always as usual. I'm excited for the final 2 episodes. I'm excited to talk to my coworker who, is just watching the show, never played the games. So, yeah, I'm excited to get in on Monday to do that. So that is the end of our Last of Us tour. I'm going to put my hands up. It's going to go quiet for people scrumming the video. So let me do that. All right. That's The Last of Us spoiler talk. Moving on to the only video game I've been playing over the past 2 weeks, because I have not been this hooked on a game in a long time. Like, there are games that I get really into, like Rebirth I got really into. Persona 5 no, Persona 5 doesn't count. Persona 5 I played the first 30 hours and then took like a 6-month break and then finished it. So that one doesn't even count. I don't know what's the last game I've been this obsessed with. I'll have to go look. It's not Metaphor, because I wasn't this obsessed with Metaphor. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to have to look at the games I've beaten recently, or my Game of the Year list, or whatever, to see games that I've been ridiculously obsessed with, like I am. It might be a long time. It might go back to like Last of Us 2, or something like that, back in 2020. It might be like 5 years ago. But yeah, this game's ridiculously good. Like, it, again, I'm not going to talk any story stuff whenever I talk about it here, but every aspect of this game so far has been, if not a 10 out of 10, at least an 8.5 out of 10. Hello, Goat. We're talking non-spoiler Expedition 33 here. So feel free to leave non-spoiler thoughts in the chat. I don't know if anybody reading the chat has played the game yet. But like I said, every aspect of this game is either 10 out of 10 or at the absolute worst 8.5. Absolute worst. And I don't know what you could say was less than 9. But I can hear you out on some things. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So, combat might be the most fun combat that I played in a long, long time. Even better than, Rebirth. It mixes things like, I'm not really good at parrying and dodging, and like stuff, parrying and shields and stuff like that. It's kind of why I lose steam in Elden Rings and Dark Souls, is because once the bosses get better, yeah, and as Go's saying in the chat, I know it's not up on here, he doesn't even like turn-based games, and he just can't, he's obsessed with it too. Because of this mixture, I know other games have done similar things in the past, but for some reason, it clicks on so many levels. It is so satisfying to get a counter off a parry, especially when it's like a multi-hit parry, and you have to time it perfectly, like 4, 5, 6 times, and then you get it, and you're like, yeah, fuck yeah, and I usually say, got him, is usually my go-to line playing the game, and I literally fought a side boss here, like one of because they have hard bosses. Called chromatics, or chroma, something with chroma, because chroma's a big thing. I think it's chromatic, or whatever. I fought aside one of those just today, that literally the only way to defeat it was to parry, and it was so much fun. I was frustrated a little bit because I'm like, this one move, he either hits you 6 times or he hits you 10 times, and there's no rhyme or reason why it's one or the other. So, yeah. But that was the only frustrating part about it. Combat's a 10 out of 10. No notes on it. It has got me engaged. It has made me even think about playing New Game Plus on Expert just to see how much harder it is. Because I'm having a ton of fun on the fights, but I'm so over-leveled right now that if I get in a good rhythm of parrying and all that stuff, I just run through. I ran through one of the bosses today, just because I don't even think I died at any point. I'm not sure. It's the one I just beat, if you remember by any chance, Goat. Yeah, the last one I beat. But yeah, combat's fun. Music, if I could do 11 out of 10, I would give it 11 out of 10 for music. It is the best soundtrack in a long time for me. as a guy that's obsessed with some video games soundtrack, um, the yeah, I have two Final Fantasy soundtracks on vinyl. I have the God of War soundtracks on vinyl. You know, it's just game music um, is very fun to have when it's done really, really well. And a lot of times when it's more instrumental, and even though this does have lyrics to some of the songs, it's just I will buy this day one when it comes out on vinyl. It is ridiculously good in terms of music. Story so far, that's probably the one that's a 9 out of 10. There's some confusing things. There's some things I don't, seems a little bit of a stretch, and certain things I don't really understand where they're going with it. But yeah, 9 out of 10 story wise. Could get the 10 out of 10 if they stick the landing, but there are just some things a little weird that I'm trying to figure out, like why, like certain questions that they're kind of trying to hand wave away, that you can't really hand wave away. But it's still very, very engaging. There's this whole system of talking to your teammates at camp, which might be the best way to introduce backstories to characters in a while. I'm not saying they invented it, but it's so much better than the Persona version. Because it's inherently like real. It feels real. They feel like they're having human conversations, and not video game people conversations. Like they interrupt each other, they make fun of each other, they, don't let things slide. Like it feels like a conversation I would have with friends. That's the best part about the interpersonal conversations in this game. SKA is my favorite character of the year, bar none. No notes on him. No notes. Best character because he balances out the dourness of some of the other characters perfectly. But yeah, that's it. I've been obsessively playing that game for the better part of 2 weeks. We're going to be back at it on Friday. Hopefully for the next 2 weeks, and we'll probably beat it. I'm hoping to beat it by Memorial Day. Is my hope, but I'm going to be doing a ton of side stuff on Friday. Friday, we're just doing everything that we can. Fight as many side bosses, get to as many places, and I might need to push forward in the story a bit. I got to figure out. Part of me doesn't want to look it up, but I know we have like a couple more rocks to get for SKA. But yeah, we're going to be doing a ton of side stuff on Friday. So be aware of that. That's probably going to be like from 7 to whenever. Just doing side stuff. But I am excited to do it. And that's because of the combat. We're like level 44 or something. So almost up to 50. And by the way, if you're wondering and you're an achievement trophy person, make sure you get at least one character to level 33. For no reason in particular. So if you're watching this channel, you're going to see a lot of this game. All the videos should be up on YouTube by next week. I did all the videos that were not Expedition 33. So the final Trails in the Sky, which is on hiatus until I'm done Expedition 33. I might just start doing that multiple days in a week just to catch up. All my Monday streams are all up. Tom puts his Thursday. So everything is up to date that's not Expedition 33. Because those videos are 2 to 3 hours. Sometimes 4. I could split them up, but I also don't have time for the editing. And it's mainly just a VOD record. I might break them up in the future. And redo the playlist to maybe see if we can get shorter, videos, maybe more engagement with shorter videos, but it would just take a little bit more work on my end. So, the hell of a game. Yeah, so that's about it. If you guys have any thoughts on Clair Obscur, non-spoiler stuff, be sure to let us know. And yeah, I am very, very, very much excited about it. So, without further ado, let us head over to the news. And our lead story today is basically an update of our lead story from last week. Giant Bomb has gone 100% independent. In a surprise announcement on Friday, Saturday, I watched the first half hour of the panel that they had at PAX East. And Giant Bomb got sold to Giant Bomb. Literally, the new owners were the four people on the mainstays. So Jeff Grubb, who we had talked about earlier, had gotten fired. He's one of the co-owners, along with Jeff Bakalar, Dan Reichert, and Janet Choa. And then they brought in Mike Minotti, who works for GameSpeed, or I don't know if he works for GameSpeed anymore, because they went independent. Maybe he can do double duty for both. But he is a fifth co-owner. So they're going to do it independent. And basically what they do is now they have a $10.99 a month subscription, which is, they were doing subscriptions when they first came out, it was $35 a year. Obviously costs have gone up, so they had to increase that. They're not going to Patreon route. It's straight direct to them. So no Patreon stuff. Yeah, and you can still subscribe Twitch and all that stuff. The great news about this is that, in my opinion, I had started getting back into watching some Giant Bomb videos recently. Unfortunately, there's been an announcement for the two new people that I had brought me back, which is weird saying that the youngest people on the site were the ones that brought me back. But, I forget his last name, so I'm just going to say his username. So Turbo Sean. He was really good as a second producer, second helping with video and stuff like that. And was really good on the show. A nice balance to the older people on staff. And then most importantly, Nikki Grayson was a breath of fresh air. They were fantastic. They were the reason that I started listening to the Voicemail Dump Truck again. I try to catch their Fuser streams on Friday. They introduced me to a song that I jokingly play over Bluetooth now to annoy my nieces, the Reese Puff rap. So I'm hoping that they can find a way to bring those guys in, even on a semi contractual basis or whatever, because those were the ones that really turned me back on to some Giant Bomb stuff, because it had been getting, lacking over recent months or years and stuff like that. But yeah, hopefully it's going to be different. But it's good news in an industry that has been having some very, very bad news. The Polygon stuff is still out there. They're not going to get independent or anything, because I don't know if they want to, or if they would even want to sell it or whatever. The people that bought it, they may just want to throw AI slop up there under the Polygon name and try and get money off of it. But Giant Bomb is saved. Giant Bomb has been sold to Giant Bomb. As much as fandom can be slightly applauded for this, but part of me wants to do the drill tweet where he says, you don't have to hand it to him. But doing this is a little bit. But I just love the fact that their press release said that they sold Giant Bomb to independent creators, that's fucking ballsy, man. Just say you sold it to the former employees, like something like that, calling them independent creators. Fucking PR sometimes, man. I swear to God. But anyway, good news. I'm interested to see what it's like going forward. I may sign up for a subscription at some point. I just want to see what it looks like first. If signing up for a subscription allows them to bring Nikki Grayson back. I will be on there because they need to be on the programming. I love their other podcasts, the VGBs, just because the chaotic nature that they have is something that very much resonates with me. So, yeah. So moving on, believe next up is our Clair Obscur block. We have 2 blocks tonight. It's Clair Obscur and Nintendo. So first up, Clair Obscur hits 2 million copies as of May 6th. So probably up more than that. So this sparked a whole thing online. Not this particularly, but the success of Clair Obscur, in that they touted as there's 33 developers or 30 developers or 32 developers and a dog. But they contracted out a lot of the work, and people are saying, well, you shouldn't celebrate it because they did all this contracting. It's not just 33 people. I'm like, guys, just celebrate a good game. Don't get into semantics. And, you know, it's just because, you know, it's a game that the game bros don't like, for the most part. So they're trying to find a way to knock it down any way they can. But the sales are no lie. And at $50, on the flip side, all the people pushing the small team narrative are also in the wrong, because they're doing it because they want to show $50 game. Small devs can make a great game like this. You don't need to make games $80. So the good news has sparked controversy where both sides are pretty much wrong, and those of us sitting in the middle, like me and Goat, are like, game's fucking great. Just play the game. Don't worry about any of this. Just play the game. I know he's currently playing Diablo right now. If I had another game to bounce off of, maybe I'll bounce off it, but I don't know. But, yeah. So, 2 million copies is kind of amazing for a first go IP here. Next up, the soundtrack is at the top of the Billboard Classical Album charts. 18 million streams in 2 weeks. As I said, it is a ridiculously good soundtrack. I listen to it on SoundCloud as much as I can when I'm at work, just as a background noise to stay calm at work, because my job gets kind of stressful, and you know, this music, it helps me relax. So yeah, go listen to music. Numbers don't lie. It's kind of amazing. I'm buying vinyl day one. Yeah, so. And finally, on the Clair Obscur, so they finally did a patch, and they nerfed one of the builds in the game. So the Sandfall had signaled this change was coming, saying it hadn't planned to make any balance tweaks this early, just bug fixes, unless something's clearly stood out, and the Stendhal did. In the build with Mael, and a sword called Metalum, which unlocks a virtuose stance that deals damage. Players were combining this ability and the Stendhal skill, which deals extreme damage, single target void damage, to dish out billions of damage, enough to kill the final boss in just one hit. It was, the quote is, it was underwhelming for most of development. So in our final pre-release balance pass, we gave it a big damage boost and clearly overdid it. It ended up overshadowing most other options. We still want you to be able to break the game, and you absolutely still can, but Stendhal was making it a bit too easy. The nerf included in the hotfix, their first hotfix set. While Stendhal is still a strong single-hit skill with great synergy potential, it's now more in line with everything else. So it reduced the damage by 40%. I don't have this weapon because it's a missable weapon that you can only get if you win if you win one of the main story tournament arena battle things with Mael, you win the last one with her. If you win it with anybody else, you get their weapon. I don't know who I won it with. I think it may have been what's her name? I think it may have been Gustav. Maybe it's either Gustav or, well, you only have 3 choices. Either Gustav or Lune. I gotta see which ones you get from that quest. To see which person I had. But I did not have my L, because I do not have this weapon. But yeah, there's people who are doing billions of points in damage, and it's fucking great. But now they can't do that anymore. So moving on to Nintendo, a little bit more sad news. A lot of the things are coming out. So the revised this users agreement. And basically, if you break the user agreement, Nintendo has the right to brick your system. Now, I didn't read deep into it, and I'm not going to trust... Oh, well, I guess I could trust the news thing, but I'm not going to just read word for word. You can go, unless they got a quick explanation. But anyway, this is bound to happen. Until May 6th, players agreed that they are not allowed to lease, rent, sub-license, publish, copy, modify, adapt, translate, reverse engineer, decompile, or disseminate all or any portions of the Nintendo account services without Nintendo's written consent or unless otherwise expressly permitted by applicable law. Now, it says, without limitations, you are to agree that you may not publish, copy, modify, reverse engineer, lease, rent, decompile, disassemble, distribute, offer for sale, or create a derivative works of any portion of the Nintendo account services, bypass, modify, decrypt, defeat, tamper with, or otherwise circumvent any functions or protections of the Nintendo account services, including through the use of any hardware or software that would cause the Nintendo account services to operate other than in accordance with its documentation and intended use. Obtain, install, or use any unauthorized copies of Nintendo account services, or exploit the Nintendo account services in any manner other than to use them in accordance with the applicable documentation and intended use in each case, without Nintendo's written consent or express authorization, unless otherwise expressly permitted by applicable law. You acknowledge that if you fail to comply with the foregoing restrictions, Nintendo may render the Nintendo account services and/or the applicable Nintendo device permanently unusable in or whole part. So, I am not a big thing, but this is probably definitely going after jailbreaking, obviously, because that was in the previous one, but I think this is also going into people emulating the Switch and stuff like that. I think that's where a lot of this is going to, because they've had from big lawsuits and people going to jail or paying high fines for it. But yeah, just those of us that live in the emulation world, and I mean, when I say emulation, I mean my perfectly legal and original retro devices that I play games on Monday with. So, some weird steps here. We might mention this on Podcast Prime, just so I can get Tom's thoughts on it. Also, their privacy policy update also says Switch 2 may monitor and record audio and video chat sessions with your consent. So, not as bad as you would think. And it makes it weird because it could get as bad as you think. If, like, you don't consent to it, but they still do it. I don't know how you would know they wouldn't do it. But, yeah. Yeah, it says, with your consent and to enforce our terms, we may also monitor and record your video and audio interactions with other users. When you use any of our services that include these or similar capabilities, we may collect your consent in accordance with our terms and use policy. So, be sure to not yell about Doug Bowser on your Nintendo Switch 2. because they may be listening in. All right. In better news, and this is for Metal Militia, happy Nintendo Switch 2 news. The entire Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy is coming to Nintendo Switch 2. So, yeah, it says, with the power of the Switch 2, we can now recreate Midgar with full specs. So there you go, Tom. If you get your Switch 2, you will be able to play the entire remake on there. It's not going to be needing to wait for it. They should be able to, get it all on there for you. So yeah, I like this Switch 2 news stuff trickling out. Yeah, this is a fun one. I thought I'd leave the last couple stories to be fun ones. So there you go, Tom. Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy coming to Switch 2. And in the worst person I know just said something great news, EA says it has no plans to increase video game prices. He says, our business is very different today than it was even 10 years ago. As they said here, in terms of pricing power, our business is very different today than it was even just 10 years ago. In a world where everything we did 10 years ago was about selling shiny discs in plastic boxes and retail shelves, well, that's still part of the business. It's a significantly smaller part of the business, and we now have pricing representing everything from free-to-play all the way to deluxe editions and beyond. At the end of the day, whether we're doing something that costs $1, or we're doing something that costs $10, or we're doing something that costs $100, our objective is always to deliver incredible quality and exponential value for our player base, and what we've discovered over the course of time is when we can marry quality and value together, our business is strong, resilient, and continues to grow. From a guidance perspective, we have reflected no changes in our current pricing strategy at this point. CEO Stuart Canfield. So yeah, somehow EA is the bastion of good news in terms of pricing. Maybe they didn't want a bunch of people yelling at them on a live stream like Nintendo had. But for those of you worried that Madden and NCAA were going to be $80, fear not. EA is doing something right for a change. And finally, Hideo Kojima. Talking about Death Stranding 2 on the beach. I'm just really happy we can finish making the game. So basically, this is the whole interview if you want to read it on IGN. Essentially, the main reason I pulled this is because he says in this interview that it is still going to be about delivering packages and not combat focused like the trailers make it out to be. I'll believe it when I see it. I can see why they would have pivoted it, but yeah, I'm excited for this game, and I can't wait for it. It's going to be the next game we're going to play a lot of starting at the end of July, so be ready for that. Yeah, so that'll do it for the news. Yeah, kind of quick there. The news, I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit too, so because I've been talking a lot all day. Yeah, so we will be back tonight if you're watching this on YouTube or listening to the audio podcast with some Bugs Bunny. We should be finishing that game tonight. And then on Thursday, we have Final Fantasy VI, and then all weekend is, well, most of the weekend is Expedition 33. Side stuff, main stuff. I'm doing a lot of it. Probably no trails. I'm probably going to do double stream again on Saturday of Expedition 33. So be on the lookout for that. And then the Monday after that, after the news hour on Sunday, which again will be about 10:30 because of Last of Us, we're probably going to finish Amagon. So I will be looking for a new game on Monday. We'll see if I come up with something before then. If not, we'll have to wait until sometime later in the week. So we'll see. So anyway, follow us on Blue Sky. We're Game Vault Pod there. We have a Discord as well. So if you want to jump in there with us, be fine. Just be sure to like and subscribe, hit that bell on YouTube so you know when those videos go live. Same thing on Twitch so you know when we go live. And that'll do it for me. Thank you, Metal Militia. Thank you, Night Duck. Thank you, Goat, as always, for being my sidekick through these last couple weeks of Clair Obscur streams and being here tonight. And hopefully we will see you on Friday, if not Monday and Thursday, if you want to pop in for those streams. But I can't wait to see you back on Friday. But for everybody else here, have a good rest of your day. And yeah, tune in for Bugs Bunny tonight. Thanks, and bye!